You need to meet India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. He and his far-right Hindu nationalist party, the BJP, are bent on creating a lost Hindu kingdom. They call it the Hindu Rastra. They've been in office since 2014, openly championing Hindu nationalist supremacist ideology. Scholars are now literally warning about genocide there. Minorities, from Christians to Muslims and beyond, are facing the greatest threats to their existence since India became independent in 1947. In fact, speaking of independence, remember Mahatma Gandhi? In 1948, he was assassinated by a Hindu extremist, a man named Nathuram Godse. Godse was a former member of the far-right Hindu nationalist paramilitary volunteer group known as the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or RSS. Imagine if the world's white supremacists had one organized paramilitary group where they could all train together and get politically organized. Yeah, exactly. Founded in 1925, they were really into the politics of Mussolini and Hitler, the RSS. A senior founding member wrote about how he was inspired by Nazi Germany, which displayed, quote, race pride at its highest and was a good lesson for use in India. The extremist ideology binding the RSS is a kind of Hindu supremacy and nationalism known as Hindutva, which, to be clear, should not be confused with the religion of Hinduism. Hinduism good, Hindutva not so good. In fact, Hindutva ideology has been really influential among some of the worst people, and not just in India. If you remember the Muslim-hating far-right Norwegian mass murderer Anders Breivik, the man who massacred 77 people in Norway in 2011, he cited Hindutva in his 1,500-page manifesto, pledging support for the deportation of all Muslims from India. He says that far-right Islamophobic movements in Europe and India should, quote, learn from each other, because, quote, our goals are more or less identical. He even put a link to the RSS website in the online resources section of his manifesto. You get the idea, right? This is a group and an ideology that is really scary. But what's even more frightening is how politically successful they've been. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a man in charge of leading a country of 1.4 billion people, almost 4.5 times the US population. He's been re-elected as Prime Minister, and yet he was a long-time organizer in the RSS, and is now head of the RSS's political party affiliate, the BJP. It shouldn't come as a surprise that Modi and his party, the BJP, were in charge of the state of Gujarat during the horrific 2002 riots there.
For a second day, Hindu mobs attacked Muslims in towns across the western state of Gujarat. Despite shoot-to-kill orders issued to police in one village, Hindus set fire to Muslim homes, killing 30 people.
Witnesses say the police stood by and watched as crowds burned Muslim-owned stores, hotels, and restaurants. In one village, 27 Muslims died when angry mobs set their homes on fire. In another village, 7 Muslims were burned to death in a bakery.
It's estimated that between 1,000 to 2,000 people were killed in Gujarat, the vast majority of them Muslims. Many Muslim women were even raped. Western researchers have called it a one-sided systemic pogrom backed by the BJP. Human rights groups, both Indian and international, also say Modi and his local government were complicit. Some even say the riots might have been premeditated. Even the US government seemed to recognize Modi's culpability at the time, banning him from coming to the United States. Until, of course, he became Prime Minister in 2014. And then, well, we were pretty much buddies again. Barack Obama even wrote Modi's 2015 Time 100 article calling him a reformer-in-chief. If Obama mainstreamed Modi and everything he represented, Trump took him to the altar and tied the knot, marrying the far-right politics of the world's 2 biggest democracies. Here in Houston, Texas, thousands attended the 2019 Howdy Modi rally, aka the Trump-Modi Love Fest.
I present to you my friend, a friend of India, a great American president, Mr. Donald Trump.
Prime Minister Modi is doing a truly exceptional job for India and for all of the Indian people.
For all of the Indian people? For all of them? Since his coming into office, since Modi came into office, hate crimes against minorities have skyrocketed, from Dalits to Christians and most of all towards Muslims. Lynchings. Yeah, lynchings of Muslims rumoured to have eaten or even transported cows, a holy animal for Hindus. Muslims being hacked to death while their attackers chant anti-Muslim slogans, extremist priests calling for the rape of Muslim women. As the BBC put it last year, unprovoked attacks on Muslims by Hindu mobs have become routine in India, but they seem to evoke little condemnation from the government. This Modi government is complicit in all of this. Last week, authorities in Delhi took 9 bulldozers through a city and destroyed parts of a mosque while people were inside, and razed dozens of homes and commercial buildings, most belonging to Muslims. Modi's government also claims almost 2 million Muslims whose families originally came from Bangladesh generations ago aren't rightful citizens of India. And if they can't prove they are, they'll be sent to what the government calls transit camps. These are mass detention centres that critics have likened to concentration camps, with boundary walls, watchtowers. There are already 6 of them, with thousands of detainees. Behind every shocking supremacist policy, you'll find shocking supremacist rhetoric. It's the same in India. A survey from one of India's prominent news channels found that hate speech from politicians skyrocketed by 500% under Modi's leadership. Modi's right-hand man, Home Minister Amit Shah, described migrants from neighbouring Bangladesh as termites at a 2019 campaign rally. A man who may likely succeed Modi as Prime Minister is Yogi Adityanath, currently in charge of India's largest state, which has a population almost the size of the US. He said India's top Muslim actor is no different to a terrorist. He's called Muslim lawmakers a green virus infecting the country. One count found more than 100 instances of hate speech and mentions of Hindutva in Adityanath's speeches from last November till February. And it's not just the BJP. Have a listen to Pooja Shankun Pandey, a leader of another Hindu nationalist group, back in December. This is dark stuff. A reminder that when we talk about the far right, it's not just the white far right. When we talk about supremacist ideology, it's not just white supremacy. There is a global far right movement. Hindutva is part of it. And while some in the West have been keen to call out the Orbans and Le Pens and Putins of this world, not many of them say a word about what Modi is up to. Joe Biden even invited the Indian Prime Minister to his democracy summit at the White House in December. What will it take for Western governments to speak out on this issue? How many more Indian Muslims or Christians need to die